Hey everyone, Adam here, So Wizard Podcast, sitting down with Mindy Wheeler to talk about her new comic, Boobs. How you doing, Mindy?
Doing great. How are you, Adam?
Doing good. Thank you for coming on. We had a little bit of scheduling, but I appreciate you making it work, so that's awesome.
Yeah, you too. I know we both live opposite schedules, but
Right.
I appreciate you working with me too.
For sure. So before we get to Boobs, what is your background in comics? Is this your first? Have you been a creator before?
This is my first book of my own content and my husband's content too. We wrote it together, but yeah, this is my first like me thing, creator owned project, you could say. I started as a colorist in about 2014, 2015-ish. It was right at the end of 2014, I think, when I got my first gig. And then just did coloring for other artists, more established artists uh, that work for like Zenoscope and things like that. And then I did get some pencil gigs with Zenoscope and a couple other publishers, Rothic. Did a Dynamite Vampirella cover about 2 years ago for her 50th anniversary. So I've been like working my way from colorist to interior pinup to cover, and now it's all out on this book 100%, like sequentials, cover, all that is my art and my writing, co-writing with my husband.
Oh, so this book you did beginning to end, every step.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be that way at first. Yeah, I this book was we talked about this book like 2.5 years ago, and I wanted to hire out the work because I was like, no way, that's so much work. Like, I was gonna have a baby. I'm like, there's no way I could do this in a timely manner. And back then too, I was doing pencils, inks, flats, colors, letters, and special effects. So there's like 6 steps to a page, and I was doing that all myself because funding fell through. So then I just said, okay, I'll still do it, but it's gonna take a while. But since then I've condensed my process. So now I do it on Procreate on my iPad. It's digital. So it's all those steps all at once. And that saves a lot of time. So
Okay.
then yeah, so now I do it myself and I can do it a lot faster now that I've gone through that learning curve. But yeah, I'm actually glad that it worked out the way that it did because I think I've improved a lot in those 2.5 years, and that I like it painfully like got to the next level. I can never pronounce his name. Do you know Stejpan Stejpic? I can't pronounce his name.
No,
He works on
sorry.
like, oh, okay. He's a foreign artist and he's amazing. And he does this. He does his all like creator books and he draws it just like me digitally. So I like he's someone I aspire to as far as milestones in that way. So yeah, definitely like this is all my own stuff now. And I'm trying not to need anybody else. I do the lettering. I do all of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Painfully
that's
so, but
awesome. Painfully so, but now you could
thank
really,
you.
it's yours. I think that's awesome. And
Yeah,
you've,
I think it's worth it. I think a lot of people who like don't understand how much work comics can be,
hmm,
and they get into it and maybe then they like realize that and they go, oh no, like maybe I wasn't prepared. I don't think I was as prepared 2.5 years ago. Now I feel like I'm prepared. I can do this. I can put out books. So yeah, and it's worth it in the end. It is. It's fun.
well, the art is phenomenal. People should go to your Kickstarter. We'll, of course, link it, but just at least watch your intro video because the art is insane. It's really good.
Thank you. Oh, that's awesome to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you said we have to dive into the process a little bit more, mostly for my own edification, but when you said you do everything at once now, your 6 steps, what does that really look like? Because you have to kind of rough it. I mean, you'll say pencils, even though it's digital, before you digitally, and you kind of have to do some stuff in order.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. It always kind of starts the same, like just sketch lines. And then, but before I was in a traditional sense. So I'd be doing pencils on paper, right? And then
Oh, okay.
and if you really want your pencils to be clean, then you'll do a blue pencil or a light pink pencil. Um, the Harlequin artist taught me that trick. That then you go over it with graphite pencil. Then you can take that into inks. So I used to be scanning in 11 by 17 papers and then then printing it out again, then inking it, then scanning that back in, and that's just, it's too many hours if you
Oh
want to
yeah.
be putting out your own books. One thing about being professional in this industry is deadlines. Like, you could even have not the best art, but if you hit deadlines, you're going to succeed more than other people because the timing is so important. So now it's just, I still actually do the blue pencil. I'll make my tool blue and like do a real light opacity, and I'll sketch it out. And then I'll sketch it out again with pencil. And then I'll just kind of flat in there and and paint. I don't know. It just goes so much faster, like not having the paper aspect. And
Yeah, yeah,
I always
that's
thought I had a painter. Yeah, it does. And in my head, I always felt like I had a painter's brain. Like, some people are really good at inking and can do that black and white cross hatching stuff, but I'm not so strong in that. I'm more strong in like shading, pencil shading and stuff. So being able to paint digitally is real smooth for me in my head because I'm painting anyway. So sometimes I'll paint over my lines a little bit and then I'll like trim it off, or like sometimes even I'll just put like a blob of color of what color I want and then like sketch over the color. So it's really flexible. It works for me. I don't know.
okay. That's cool. Yeah, no, it sounds interesting because you're doing the whole process beginning to end. You can There's no one set process. You know what works for what the result you want, which is really interesting.
Mm, it's fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. So your flats to like your basic color to when it's all fully shaded and all that, is that still three separate steps, or do you just paint?
Um, I still flat for the most part, but it goes so much faster. I also switched the programs that I use twice over since 2.5 years ago when I started the book. It was in Photoshop, and I had this big tablet too, like on my desk, and I was doing it on the screen. So I actually like having it smaller. And then I switched from one program, then that program got bought out by another program, and I lost files in that process
Oh,
even.
that's rough.
Yeah. And then we switched, and now it's Procreate, or I bought Procreate to ditch that program or whatever. So in this program, I just take it's like a lasso tool, and I just go whoosh, and I just fill it, and then I just select it and I shade it. So there still is flatting because you still need the outline of what you're coloring.
Hmm.
But in Photoshop, it seemed like much more expensive. Like, Sabine Rich is the one that kind of helped teach me colors at one of the jobs I was at. And there's all these like, make sure it's not pixelated on this edge, make sure this is selected, make sure this is that. And it was just it's like much more painful. Procreate is faster. So if adding takes like 2 seconds, as opposed to when I did it in Photoshop, like I even hire people to flat my things sometimes. It's a job in itself, but
Yeah,
that just takes like 2 seconds on Procreate, so I don't have to do that.
that's really interesting. Does Procreate like
Mhm.
have some kind of like intelligent tool that says, "Oh, this is a pretty defined area. We're gonna flat it," or you're just faster with the tools?
I think I'm faster with the tools, and I think it's faster in processing speed. Maybe that's partly due to my equipment, but in Photoshop, it just like in Photoshop, I was taught to take, for example, a brush tool. It's been so many years. I'm trying to remember exactly, but you use a hard edged brush, and you need to make sure that there's a certain setting. I forget what it is now, selected so that your edges don't turn out pixelated. And then you have to basically color in by hand,
Oh,
and that's, you're coloring the whole thing like crayons in a coloring book. That's what you're doing to flat. They do have a lasso tool, but as far as I remember, it was not dependable enough, and the edges would come out pixelated. So then you'd go back into color it and shade it, and you'd have bad edges.
okay,
So with Procreate, you can still color it with a hard brush, but their lasso tool, I find, is dependable in that way for me. And maybe if I was working for somebody else, maybe they'd have a preference. I don't know, but I don't find that necessary, that extra. I can just do it. And it's also my own art. And I tend
right.
to smudge. I like the smudge tools too, which not everybody does. If you're doing more like traditional flatting and coloring, you've got heavy inks, you don't use the smudge tool. You stick, really, you're married to your pencils. but because I kind of paint more than I think some artists in my head, that's just my style. I'm okay with like if I see a rough edge, I'll just and like fix it up. I'm not married to it. There's not three artists. There's not a penciler or four, an inker, a flatter, and a colorist. So I'm not married to one step. All the steps are my own to change.
Yeah.
So it's it's more free to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's really cool. And the flexibility of doing it all yourself. I mean, as much as the time is ridiculous, I'm sure it's very cool that you have those options. And I appreciate you
Yeah.
going that deep down the rabbit hole for me.
You're welcome. Anytime. Any hard questions, I'm here.
So for the original concept, I mean, you've done a lot of work. We could probably do a whole hour-long conversation on your past before you got to your own creator-owned book. But when you thought of well, actually, why don't you kind of give the elevator pitch for Boobs so people know what we're talking about?
Okay. Well, see, I don't have it memorized, but off the top of my head, it goes a ditzy yet, loving, she's very loving cosplayer, um, cannot or finds herself in trouble on the convention scene despite her enormous assets. It's sort of it follows this cosplayer, and she isn't always at the convention scene, so it's not 100% convention story, but she is a cosplayer, and it's very lighthearted, very bubbly. She's got big boobs.
The title would suggest. Is it like a super heroics kind of thing, or is it a little bit more grounded?
There,
Unless it's a spoiler, then you can always just say, "Got to read the book."
there's maybe a little bit of that coming, but it's not like right off the bat a hero story. Like nobody in issue 1 for sure has superhero powers. It's just a normal story about the cosplayer and her counterpart Sumchai. This is the first issue where they meet, and then they go through an inciting event, and they get stuck in the trajectory of the rest of the story. So there's no superhuman abilities maybe yet, but no, not right now.
Okay, so possible spoilers. I'll try not to probe on that anymore. You said this is, I mean,
Okay.
it's issue 1 on Kickstarter, and you said this is the start of the story. Do you have the whole thing
Mhm.
written, or at least outlined?
Mhm. Yes. Yes, I do.
You've
Right
been
on
working.
her.
Oh, okay. You've
Yes,
been
there's
working on
8
the.
issues.
Okay.
Yes, been working on that. So, and it could possibly, go farther. But I also have other titles that I want to write too,
Hmm.
and other funny ones like between my husband and I that we would really enjoy putting out. So I have this really solid 8 issue story arc that I'm married to that. I really do want to see that through. I think that's a really nice story. It flows, it's got its ups and downs, its climactic event. That's very strong, I think, on the writing. So if it still garners interest, I could continue beyond that. But I think after that 8 issues, I'm going to break and move on to another title and kind of do the same thing and then bounce back and forth probably.
Okay, that's cool. So you're kind of looking to pivot your career more to the creator owned, or are you still taking on outside work?
Nah, no, there's no reason to.
There's no time
And
to.
I haven't been treated by the best.
Oh.
Right, that's another big factor. Yes, yes. Time, yeah, but no, time is also a factor for sure, especially that the book has been successful now. So, and issue 2 will come out, and I'm slated for like August, September launch. So I'm going to be busy the whole rest of the year. There's no time. But on top of that too, I haven't been the most impressed with the industry. And I think that being creator owned gives me a lot more freedom and control, and I get paid better and treated better because it's just me. So there's
Yeah.
not really a reason to do it. I
Yeah,
don't think I'd want to. Really.
that's unfortunate to hear, but I'm glad you were able to forge your own path because some other people might have just given up and.
Oh well, there were times when I did give up even, and then came back. I've kind of left and come back to comics like twice over. and it's just a tough and very political and dramatic and petty industry on the creator end, not on the fans. I
Hmm.
mean, there are trolls, that like will get behind a creator and then troll you as a creator. That's happened to me, but for the most part, it's the other creators that I found and publishers that have been just very toxic and very, very political. And if you're not kind of like a part of the cool kids club or agree 110%, then like you're not allowed to be there. So
Yeah,
you get the boot.
I kind of feel what you're saying. It's really unfortunate that you had to go through that. It's really unfortunate that exists. I mean, let's at the surface level, like no one should have to go through it because it should never even come up. Especially in a medium that
Right.
brings so much joy to people. You'd think you're telling stories, you're doing art, and it's kind of a struggling medium as it is, especially for the big publishers. You'd think it would be like all hands on deck. Let's keep this ship going.
Yeah, yeah, you would think. And so I thought too, and I've been, I think, naive in trusting other people too much too. Like some people will have to me in the past been like, "Oh, this is a very friendly community," and then I get in there and they're like, "Oh, everybody attack Mindy!" Like it's like, oh, like I've woken up some mornings, so like people who were my friends on Monday and then on Tuesday they're bashing me online and other creators and things. And it's just like, really, dude? I think that seriously part of it is competition. So like,
Yeah.
I think it started out political. Yeah, I think there's definitely politics at play. Don't get me wrong. And I think that was more towards the early years of the whole 9 years I've been. Like half of the early years were really like politics, 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 and definitely like also Instagram hires was a thing. I remember talking to industry veterans that were sort of ashamed, sad, disappointed that the industry, the publishers kind of like got lazy and they'd say, oh, we'll hire you but only if you're already internet famous, and they didn't feel it was their job to push their artists. It was really backwards. I hated that. A lot of people hated that. And a lot of people rose to the top that maybe shouldn't, because like they didn't put in the work. They just got kind of favorited into that position, or like
Hmm.
they brought the publisher internet fame. So like that's how they got the job. In my opinion, that's how that worked. I saw it happen. And then the later years of me in this comic book realm was, I think, mostly just competition. I think people sometimes use the guise of politics to just crush competition.
Hmm.
And being another creator, I'm competition. So I think that's also at play. It's not just politics, it's also people trying to, like any other business, you know, trying to like
Yeah.
kill their competitor. And sometimes politics is a good way to do that, even if it's true or not true. But it's just human nature. I guess.
I guess. Yeah,
A part of
it's
it.
that's bizarre to me because I mean I'm very much on the fringes, like we're beyond tiny. But I've noticed that too, where people will like kind of step on you to promote themselves, and it's like we can both win here. There's no need for that. Like, there's not one
Yeah.
person who's only going to buy one comic book ever, and it has to be like. And if they are, then who cares if you get them or not? You get $3 one time, like who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny you say that because lately I've been really like thinking about that in my head in a more philosophical way. Um, and it kind of boils down to there's like two types of people. Some people think that there's not enough to go around ever,
Hmm.
and we all have to like scrape and scratch and climb on each other's backs. And then there's other people who believe that there really is enough to go around, and then those people are more kind of like the faithful, like lighthearted people that are just like it's okay. But also those people can be more naive and can be the ones being stepped on by the guys that think there's not enough to go around. I happen to be of the opinion that there's enough to go around. There's how many billion people in this world?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, and they talk about food shortages. I've traveled this whole country as a trucker. There's Dude, there's like 90% open land in this country. There's so much open land. It's the same concept. Like, there's enough for everyone, whether you see it or not. I really think there is. So there's no need for that nasty attitude.
No, definitely not. And from what I've seen in the nasty attitude, and of course it doesn't apply to everybody, but it's the person who's spending more time attacking you than creating their own book doesn't believe in their own book.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no time. There's
Right.
no time to do it. Exactly.
And
Yep,
even if you
you
had
got
that
it.
famine mentality and you thought my book has to be the only one, if you really thought it was that much better, there would be no need to take you down. It's weird. It's bizarre to me.
Yep. It's bizarre to me too, but there's a lot of people that agree with you and agree with me on this, and you just hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I think. If you have the time to do it, then you're missing out on pages.
Right, yeah,
So,
yeah. You said 17 angry tweets today. You could have colored 5 panels. What are you doing?
yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned the publishing thing. I mean, some of the nasty sides of it. But now that you're a self-publisher, what is that route like? I mean, obviously you probably have digital and printed, but is it all self-done? Did you work with somebody?
No, it's all me. I It's all me. I do have a couple of printers that I've worked with in the past for my art prints. I also just do as much as I can myself. I like doing that. I think that that's a good way to grow. So, like, my husband and I made a pair of silicone boobs for the campaign, and he's actually hand bedazzling them. And he's gonna sign the back and write an inspirational quote to, like, "You're fabulous today." So we like doing more like personal touch things instead of relying on other people. But I've had bad experiences with printers too. I didn't really realize how much nastiness there was from people in this industry until, like, I got in it.
Hmm.
It was weird when I started because people always warned me. They're like, "Oh," and they were really hesitant to like talk about things. And now I know why, is because there's a lot of scammers. So the as more self-reliant I can be, the better, I think. And I like it better this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Just to go, I keep going back to the same thing where it's just so strange. Like now you're mentioning printers not being up and up. It's like I literally just went through that like a month ago, and they were almost baffled that I was calling them out on it. It's just like, no, you took my money, give me the product. Like it's
Yeah, yeah. So I will recommend Ready Comics. They're someone that I've used for like 9 years. I always go back to them. They'll see me like once every 2.5 years, and I'm like, "Hey, it's me again." But they've always done really well. So they're one printer I can say. Oh, and Fairy Metal in Las Vegas. They're also very good people. But yeah, I mean, I also have had printers, and yeah, just a lot of nasty people. I don't know. It's a weird time to be alive.
it sure is. Yeah, that's for certain. But we can focus on more positive things because now you don't have to. Well, I guess you still have to deal with printers, so you're not totally out of the woods. But you don't have to deal with like bosses.
Right. And I do have a printer that prints my art prints too, that I bought a long time ago. So that's cool. So I can actually print my own art prints from time to time, depending on like the size and the shape and whatnot. So I've tried to be really self-reliant, because I've had to be. But it's awesome though. Like I really want to build my own statues.
Okay.
So, like, Todd McFarlane is a big inspiration for me in that
Mm.
way, and his whole career. And I think it's funny how he's done McFarlane toys, because I think he's probably picky about statues and toys, because I'm also really picky about statues and toys. Like, I'll look at something, I don't know, this is a bell, but usually like I'll see them at the store and I'm like, "Oh, their face. I just want to like paint their face so bad it doesn't look right." So so that's my next like adventure is we're trying to work on little statues and figurines and getting resin. It's expensive, but
Yeah.
like I'm determined to make this happen. So my dream is to take this beyond just like me on Kickstarter, but actually like hand painted statues and any possible avenue I can do to be creative, because that's just what I love to do. just make things.
So when you say statues, I mean you're going to be sculpting, or is it like 3D printing?
I can do both. I do sculpt. We did get a 3D printer, and that's helping us do some things. But I think I'm going to do a combination of both. Like, so my scanner should be arriving today. Actually, if there's so much cool technology that's becoming available, there's a scanner that you can take. The spell again. So I can take this scanner like Star Trek and scan it, and it will scan into the computer to print. So it
Oh,
could be any object at all. Isn't
that's
that
awesome.
crazy?
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's kind of like where I intend to go. This first statue I'm working on here. I call this the Monty scene in Monty Python where like his leg gets chopped off and he's still going.
Yeah, yeah.
Tis but a scratch. Like this was a very failed test print of something that we had to have digitally sculpted that I helped, but I'm no expert in 3D modeling. So we hired someone to help us figure this out. But it's a trial and error process. So there's all kinds of like complicated stuff. The support structures, the materials, the speed, the temperature. So that's what. Whoops. Oh,
Oh,
she just
and now
she
it's
just
busted.
keeps getting beat. I just dropped her. That's okay. So I'm 3D printing this one, but then I want to take that 3D print, make a mold of it, take it out, and then sculpt on top of it to make even more details. And that's kind of the
Okay.
first venture because I don't have that scanner yet. But once I figure out that scanner, the second statue I want to make, I want to sculpt by hand and and then do it that way. And the 3D printer helps that like mass production because it can help me print the mold if I need to, or like I can go on there and add the logo, like
Yeah.
stuff like that. So the combination of both technologies is really cool. And the next mold I want to do is of the cover of issue 2 where she's kind of like holding her chest, and I'm going to call it the bust, and so I probably am going to take my actual hands, and like mold them and then scan it all once I like sculpt it into the spot that I need, scan it, put it in the computer, put the logo on it, and then like go from there. Then print it out, then mold it, then resin it, then paint it. So a lot of steps. This is like my dream come true. I love to create things. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, your artistic talent sounds like they're kind of boundless. Where you're like, oh yeah, I can just sculpt out of resin. I can sculpt this clay thing, then scan it in 3D print it, then paint it, and I can sculpt on top of the paint. Like it's my head's spinning. Like I'm still on Procreate.
Sorry.
No, no, it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I've always been a very creative person. So, and my parents, I probably have them to thank, even though we don't get along, for that because they knew I was artistic when I was little, and so they put me in a lot of like art classes, whatever they could afford. So I've been for a while, but then I like rejected it. I was like, I don't want to be an artist. And now here I am again. But I've been sculpting and painting and stuff since I was like, very little. Or they'd buy me clay or Play-Doh, and I'd sit there and part of that is me just like having a knack for it and enjoying it. For example, not my son. So a little bit of that is just like a natural inclination to be creative, but also I've been doing it for my whole life. So here I am making boobs. That's what I chose to do with that.
Your parents' dream come true.
Yeah. Hold my beer. I'm not as much of a disappointment as I could be. Let's see where I can go with this.
That's very cool. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about the Kickstarter for Boobs? Because I saw you funded in half an hour, which is insane, and it puts you like right at the top of all the best of lists, which is very, very awesome. Um, Along with that, like, what are your tiers? What are you offering? And this is going to drop like right before your Kickstarter is over, unfortunately. But where can people get it if they miss the Kickstarter deadline?
Um, on that second question, I haven't figured out yet. People have been asking me if they can buy it after the fact, and I'll I'll work on that. I don't know where yet. I don't like Amazon. I don't like them at all. I've driven trucks in their area and they're mean. So I don't like the company. So I don't know about that yet. But right now and until Friday night, it's Friday night, Saturday at about 1 a.m. You can get it, and you can get the digital PDF for $10. You can get a pair of stress boobs, the silicone boobs, apart from that for $5. You can get them hanging on a necklace for 6, or you can get them bedazzled, hand bedazzled, which is a painful process, but very fun for 15. I think that particular tier. Oh, and you can add on like the digital PDF and stuff with those. So those are the smaller tiers. And then I think the next book is either 20 or 30. I think it's 20, and then yeah, $20 for the mega pint, $30 for the most popular cover, which is the a naughty original Super Babe cover. So she's in the kind of super pose, but she's exposing herself, um, which goes along with the story. And that's by far the most popular cover. It's just kind of an iconic pose. And then they go up from there. There's there's kind of 3 different themes, which tie into the story. There's these beach babes, I call them. They're like sirens, mermaids. They don't have tails or anything, but they're very attractive women that pop up at the beginning of the story, which is available online. I think the first 7 pages are for free somewhere, where some chai, he's in some fantasy dreamland, and they just like start popping out of the water with beer. And they're like, oh, I heard your wish. You wanted more beer. So there's that whole like beach babe theme. And there's a mega pint. I don't know if anybody watched the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, but there was some reference to a mega pint. So that's what I called it. It's a giant mega pint of beer, and they're all, very sexy around that. That's one cover. Then there's the kind of sirens cover where they're like exploding kind of out of the water. Like there's water all around them. They're rising up out of it. So there's those 2 themes. And then there's the Super Babe one where it's her, the Boobs, her nickname. And she's cosplaying as a sort of Supergirl costume. Each issue is going to have her in a different costume. She has
Okay.
like an accidental or intentional costume change at the end of each issue. So this one is sort of Supergirl, Superman themed. And in each of those tiers, for the most part, it goes either just the book in an art print, or the book in an art print and a metal print with a sticker. So that's how they're organized. And then there's the Big Boob Special, which has the cover and like all the art prints and maybe a sticker and a medal. Or there's the Boobapalooza, which is everything, all the covers and everything. And there's also a blank cover. So if the possibilities are endless with a sketch cover, so
Oh,
you
blank
can
cover that
get some
you
of those.
draw for one-offs for people.
Yes, I there is a tier for me to draw it. There's also just the book itself blank, like if you want to draw on it or you want
Oh,
to take
okay.
it to someone else. The blank sketch cover. And then all tiers have like add-ons. If you buy one book, you could buy another book, like the 2 for 1, because 2 boobs are better than 1. So you can buy another book at a discount. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I did have sketch card of the Beach Babes tiers, but those are gone now. They're all sold out. So yeah, next
That's
next
awesome.
campaign I'll do more of the thanks. I'll do I'm planning on doing more early bird stuff. When issue 2 comes of like sketches, and also this campaign I didn't really mess with foil covers or metal covers because I didn't know how it was going to do. I don't want to make $900 and then promise all foil covers and each cover costs me, an arm and a leg, and then I have no profit.
Yeah.
So next issue though, I do have quite a few really cool covers planned, and I've been talking with Ready Comics on those. And yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So issue 2, I'm even more excited for now. I can't wait to show all those rewards. So yeah, that's it.
That's very cool. I know we're a little bit over on time and your kids are need attending, this sounds like they're making a mess, spilled water or something. Um, but your Kickstarter is very well put together, very well thought out, and obviously was very successful. Is this your first Kickstarter campaign, or did you work with a company, or is this again all you?
That's just me. That's all
Wow.
me. And thank you. I have been a graphic designer for over 15 years. I don't remember how old I am on a day-to-day basis, but being creative though, I learned Photoshop when I was like 12. And then I remember back in the old new baby internet, I'd like take requests for submissions and like make people personalize little photos and stuff. Um with Photoshop when I was like 13, 14. And then I kind of grew from there. I separated from my parents kind of early. It was real messy there. So I kind of got thrown into the workforce early. So I've been doing like logo design and stuff for a long time. I think 16, 17, I kind of started doing professional graphic design gigs.
Wow.
And, I'm not going to say I was the greatest then, but now I have so many years of experience. Graphic design is just like one of the things I do. So I didn't need a company to help me with that. I know there are some that exist, but I just did it all myself. And the video, that's my voice. That says boobs, by the way, on the
I mean,
video.
that's tremendous because running the Kickstarter, I mean, once all the assets are set up, just running the Kickstarter is a job in itself. So it's incredible what you're doing.
That is true. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That was something I underestimated, was the amount of work that goes into running a Kickstarter. But I love it. I love it. And with graphic design, I ended up going into marketing. I've worked for several different companies, and I always worked hand in hand with marketing. And sometimes I have some management experience. Um, so this feels a lot like my old job that the robots took. I've been replaced by robots twice.
Fun.
So yeah, it just happens. Like when Facebook started coming around, all the small businesses just decided that they would fire their marketing managers and get Facebook business pages and
Hmm.
advertise that way. And all like when I first started in marketing, I was designing newspaper ads and flash banners. You know what I mean? So we've all been since replaced. And then website design, I used to do that, but you can get a robot to do that now. So so this is fun for me because a robot can't make my Kickstarter.
Right.
And
It's not going to sculpt your
yeah,
things. And
right. It can't make my reward tiers. There's a limit to its creativity. And it also has a very unique style that is not my style. So this is like me having all my old jobs and all my old dreams like back again.
the best
So I
versions of
love
each.
it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. 100%. And my husband too. We love to laugh. So, like, that's what brought us together. And in the very beginning of our relationship, we were talking about a character named Sunchai, who is the character in this book now. So it's like, yeah, it's like all the best of everything coming together. So I'm having the time of my life. Seriously. It's a lot of work, but it's amazing. I'm having a blast. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life now.
It's so
So
cool because everything you're
here I
telling me, it
am.
sounds like this is like your victory lap, but you're still young and doing it, so it's not over. It's not the end. It's the beginning. It's incredible.
Thank you. Yes, that feels like the beginning, and I've got a lot to come. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. Thank God for crowdfunding and for the internet, even in this way. The internet can get real nasty, but this is like the good side of the internet. Talking with you and like having that connection face to face too. Um, Allow me being able to talk to people who buy the book directly too, instead of like just giving it to a publisher and never having that face to face. So I think it's awesome. I think there's a lot yet to come that's going to be really positive for everybody involved. And this
Oh,
is a
for
dream come
sure.
true.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Huh?
It's to see your Kickstarter, I would think you've been doing that alone for 10 years already. The fact that you're like, no, it's my first shot. I just did it myself and
Well, thank you. That's a very good. That's a very nice compliment. Thank you.
Yes,
Um,
well, thank you, and thank you for taking the time. This was incredible. We'll definitely have to do it again for number 2 or whatever else you have coming out.
yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm sure that I'll be at this for a while, so I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Cool.
Well, Mindy, thanks again. For everybody listening, I will put a link to the Kickstarter in the comments, and your social media accounts. Is there one you prefer over the other? Twitter, Instagram?
Twitter sometimes hides my pictures because I think they figure I'm posting a bunch of boobs everywhere. You know,
Which is
I mean,
strange
I
because you can
am.
put like some hardcore stuff on Twitter.
I know.
That's a
I went
weird
on
one.
Instagram. Yeah, it is. Even on Instagram, I saw a lot of nudity lately, and I was like, wow. But Instagram is so visual. That's probably my favorite social media. But you can find me anywhere. So
Okay, we'll
yeah,
put your accounts. It
I
makes sense for
appreciate
an
that.
artist. Yeah, for sure.
The link dropping.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd
Hmm.
I'd say best of luck, but you don't you don't need it. You're doing great.
Oh well, thank you. Well, best of luck with your podcast too. Send me the links because this has been a really great podcast. I've enjoyed
Oh,
it a
for
lot.
sure.
So
Yes. Thank you.
I
Me
want to
too.
definitely bookmark it.